Okay, one of the guys showed me this video, Living Lonely and Loveless in Japan. This documentary. And of course, this is a useless documentary in so much as that they will never come to the right conclusions because they frame it as a gender neutral situation. This is not gender neutral. This is something that primarily affects men, if not entirely. And so I'm going to get to the most important parts first and work backwards so you guys can get to the most important parts.
The call for society to be more inclusive is going out nationwide from a little city called Kitakami.
で、学校に苦しむっていうことが一番問題だなと思っているので、家でゆっくり過ごせて、自分の問題と子供の問題は全然別の問題ですので。
Now, here is a mother whose son is hikikomori. Who are they doing? They're giving her a microphone. So she's accepted by society as a woman. Her son isn't because he's a guy. That's the issue with this.
Seiko Goto has helped raise the alarm about hikikomori. She gives advice to those who are suffering.
まずはいつも私が言っているように、親が幸せになること、自分の気持ちを落ち着かせて整えるっていうことが先じゃないかな。
She's been through the ordeal herself. It took years for her to accept that her son, Masato, could barely leave his room.
Really? Okay, so again, it's not gender neutral, is it? Because whenever they show someone in this situation, it's a guy, isn't it? You watch this video, you're not going to see any women in this bad situation. Also, they don't mention what she does for a living. So she's probably a housewife. So he and she are basically living the same kind of lifestyle. It's just that she's accepted by society and he isn't. Because men are not human beings to society. They're either useful to society or they're rejected.
He was a hikikomori.
私はですね、本当に勉強させたい、いい高校に行かせたい、そしていい会社に勤めさせたいっていうことで。
Yeah, see, she wanted him to do all the gender normative stuff that guys do. Women expect, along with men, for men to do their gender norms. It's enforced by the female sex as much as anybody.
本当にね、もう朝から晩まで勉強しろっていうことで、ひどいお母さんだったと思います。
As she struggled, she had some very dark thoughts.
息子を殺して自分も死んだ方がいいんじゃないか。こんな子供を自分が育ててしまう。
The guy who showed me this was really upset over this, but I have to say, I understand where she's coming from. She's seeing her child suffer, and she doesn't know what to do about it. So this woman actually has a high degree of empathy for her child. Because if she didn't, she would have just kicked him out and said, you're on your own. There's all kinds of mothers who would have kicked him out, just said, you're on your own. Notice there's no father here, right? They don't interview a father. So he's probably not in the picture.
世の中の役に立たない人間を育ててしまったっていうので。
I had raised a person who was no use to the world. See, this is the problem. Boys are trained to be the little go-boys, the little slave boys to the world. And they're not, they're discarded. And the reason why this woman, like again, I say, is fine with her lifestyle is because she's never rejected. She doesn't have to even work for a living. And society welcomes her.
それくらいやっぱり思い詰めてましたね。
Notice he's doing things that aren't typically male. So, and if you see the original, like at the beginning, when I show the original, you'll see women who do exactly what women do.
Improved when she realized it was her problem and she was the one who had to change.
引きこもってる人たちを変えて元気にさせて仕事に就かせて税金を納めさせたいって日本の国民は思ってると思うんですけど、私は全くその逆で、社会の側こそが変わってみんなが生きやすい。
Well, she's got the right idea. She's actually seeing that modern society doesn't have to be the way it is. And again, notice that's really cute. So this young fella is hobbies are atypical for a guy.
Masato is uncomfortable speaking, but agreed to explain his experience.
個性を消されていくっていうか、すごい扱いやすい人間にされていく感じが嫌でした。
Seiko's been heard in Tokyo. The government has invited her to help fix the hikikomori problem.
Yes. Now, do you understand why this is the most important part, right? This woman is a complete nobody. She hasn't achieved anything in her life. She's nothing special. She's just a member of the female race. And the government is inviting her, someone who hasn't achieved anything, to solve the problem. And by doing this, the government is a part of the problem. Because if it was about solutions, it wouldn't invite her at all. He would invite her son. This woman, this shows you the acceptance of women. Like the woman who has achieved nothing gets an invite. She's accepted everywhere. I mean, here in Canada, do you remember Greta Thunberg? This girl talked about climate change. She is a do-nothing nobody. And she got a microphone from the government. Why are people listening to her? She's achieved nothing. She's not an authority on anything. And so this is the comparison. Do you see the issue with this? The average woman can get on, she's given a voice on a national level. And yet men, if they speak up at all, are ignored.
Seiko's been heard in Tokyo. The government has invited her to help fix the hikikomori problem.
引きこもりという状態が、特別なことではなくて、本当に引きこもっていようが、引きこもってなかろうが。
Even she's getting it wrong. Because she's, again, framing it in gender neutral terms. She's not a shut-in because she's a woman. She doesn't have to achieve anything in her life. And here she is, getting a national voice. It's the men. She has to frame it as a male issue.
みんな同じ人間なので、一人一人違っているよっていうだけのことだっていうことを一番伝え。
And this has nothing to do with difference. Everyone, even the guys keep saying different. They're not different. It's how high up on the hierarchy are they, how successful they are. The difference is how successful you are. Women don't need success, and that's why this isn't a female problem. Men either succeed or they're rejected.
伝えたいですね。
But getting these government health officials to understand isn't easy. Just speaking at the meeting is a little overwhelming.
Yeah, I'm an ordinary mother. Exactly. This woman's probably a house mother, right? She probably does, they don't mention her job, so she probably doesn't work for a living. And yet she's entirely accepted by society. Government officials come to ask her issue problems. Here's her voice. Give us your important voice as a person who's achieved nothing. And again, I can't hammer this home any more than I'm trying to, as hard as I can. The son is ignored, and he's always going to be ignored because they're not willing to admit that this is a gendered issue. Okay, so we've seen enough of this. That's the most important, okay? This is another hikikomori that you're going to talk about. Again, it's going to be a guy.
Hidden in the bedrooms of homes across Japan, more than 1 million people have retreated altogether. Hidehiro.
They're doing it again. He's framing it as gender neutral, and they're showing a guy. This is 1 million people. This is 1 million men, 1 million male people.
Shinmasu is one. His bedroom has been his universe for the best part of 20 years. He's now 40 years old. We've been allowed to visit this very private space. He lives at home, supported by his parents, and has spent days mentally preparing for our arrival. The problem of shut-ins is so acute in Japan that it has a name: hikikomori.
Yes, and it's a male issue here.
しますさん、お部屋で何をします
It's a male issue because they're not showing any women, are they?
か？
読書をしたり、あと YouTube 見たり、パソコンで YouTube 見たり。
はい。
これはファッション系 YouTuber の源氏さんっていう洋服のトレンドとかを解説する人です。
はい。じゃあ見せて。
はい。
Hidehiro spends most of his day touching the world through this screen.
結構私人と関わるのが好きなので、そういう意味でいろんなインターネットを通して今対人関係。
Now notice this is important too. When people insult men by saying go out and touch grass, you're more likely to find like-minded people on the internet. If you have unusual taste, everyone knows that. Where as opposed to going outside and randomly running into people or going to a social occasion or going to a bar, right? And more people are finding, this guy is finding his social circles on the internet. He's being rejected if he goes outside. So, I mean, this is common sense. This isn't a failing on his person. It's a societal failure. Society is rejecting him because he's not a successful man. Society is rejecting him due to his lack of success. So it's a societal issue, not his issue. He's not to blame. Society is.
コミュニケーションができるので、非常に家にいながら誰かとつながる。
His downward spiral began when he couldn't live up to his family's and society's expectations.
They're getting it wrong. Society's expectations is that he be successful. That's it. So he should be saying the word success. That's how you frame this.
私は小学校中学校ともあんまり運動ができなかったりスポーツもできなかったり、勉強もできなかったので、あんまり自信がないっていうか人の顔色を伺う。
Okay, those are the two criteria, either physically or mentally. He wasn't good at sports and he wasn't good at studying. So in other words, those were the two avenues to success. So he wasn't successful. And so he's rejected by his society. Societies do not measure men, humanity whatsoever. We're measured completely on how successful we are or how useful we are, or we're rejected. And that's what happened to this guy. Women are accepted as women, period. They don't have to succeed at all. That's why this is a male issue.
そういう自己肯定感が低い子供でした。自分が社会に合わない、自分が悪いとか、自分自身が劣っていると思ってたの。
Well, he is inferior in the way that society measures men. So the problem should be that men should be fighting in any society to be measured as their humanity.
He felt he'd brought shame on his family. He was different in a culture that values conformity.
No, he wasn't different. This has nothing to do with conformity. He was unsuccessful. That's it.
同調圧力が強かったり同質性が強かったりして、人と違った行動を取る人だったり人と違う 生き方に対してあんまりこう寛容ではないので、
Were you able to go out? What was daily life like?
まあ、絶望感というか、まあ、その何にもできなかったので、それまでは頑張れたんですけど、同じように頑張ろうと思って頑張れなくなったので、でその卒業のする見込みも立たない、その時が一番絶望感というか。
Exactly. Once he realized there was no chance for him to gain success, that's when he became a shut-in. That's the issue. That's what he's saying. And this is why, again, I started thinking about dying. See, this is why the other thing that is, they talk about the suicide rate being high for Japanese people. They, again, frame it gender neutral. It isn't gender neutral. This is a man's issue. That's why the suicide rate for men is so much higher than women all the time.
He wants to feel accepted.
Are you comfortable with this life?
やっぱりもう今40歳なので、そういった意味でなんかこうあんまりこう、社会に合わないからいいんだっていうことではなくて、やっぱある程度こう社会が実際にもうちょっと歩み寄ってもらって、その引きこもり状態である方でも、だから僕でもその働けるようなメニューを増やしてもらい。
There you go. You see, he wouldn't, but if society accepts him, this is about acceptance. He's been rejected by society because he didn't succeed. But if society accepted him for being a shut-in, he wouldn't be shut in the first place. That's the whole point of this. Now, we're going to get to guys who do succeed, and you'll see that they're living their lives fine because they gain success.
Nearly every day from World War II on, an army of men thronged to work. Men sacrificed their lives for the firm and the family. And women stayed home to mind the children. But the economic miracle it built was shattered in the 1990s.
Now you're seeing the issue, isn't it? When Japan was prosperous, these men could bribe the women into their lives and everything was good and great. As soon as things shattered in the 1990s, that's where all these shut-ins came from because the men couldn't succeed. And once they couldn't succeed, the women dumped them, and that's where all the depression comes from.
Things changed. Women could work, and work became more insecure and competitive.
No, it didn't get competitive. Women always could have worked. This is the lies, their propaganda that I've got to stop. These women could always work. It's just that once this modern day living came and you had nice, clean office jobs, that's when these women said, I want to work. And there's no competition either. The women enter the workforce. I bet it's the same in Japan as it is over here. Women get work quotas. So it's not even competition. The men are just shut out for women. So it's a double whammy to the men.
The old rules don't suit the modern world, but new rules aren't replacing them. It's a paradox causing deep social anxiety.
It's not a paradox. The rules didn't change at all. The rules were always the women could make decisions they wanted to. And in the past, they had limited choices, but they were still always treated better. They never had to go to war. They always had the easier labor jobs, and nothing has changed. So again, this documentary has it wrong.
Sayaka Kinjo has a successful career in the fashion industry, and she has no intention of following society's old rules by getting married and having children.
See, this is bullshit. She is following the same rules. She's in the fashion industry. Remember I showed that young fella earlier, and he was doing a atypical, knitting cute little dolls. This woman is doing what women have always done. She's interested in the fashion industry. So she's doing exactly what women do.
Instead, she spoils her much-loved dogs.
もう生活の中心になってますね。
And there you go. The dogs are surrogate babies. But these women don't want to deal with the man because a man isn't someone that they fall in love with as a person. He's a person that they, supplies a use, or they don't deal with them. And the men in Japan, they can't find a use for them. So they prefer single. And, like I said, they're accepted in all societies. So we don't need men. She hangs with her girlfriends. The women want to hang with other women. So that's her social circles. The day she feels like getting a man, she will.
仕事するのもお出かけするのも全部犬のためですね。
By 2040, Japan is on track for almost half its population to be single. This is Unimaru with her new haircut.
Yeah, so, okay, shows the women are happy. Oh, yeah, we better see. You'd ask them about sex here. Get past the dogs.
To get married one day?
特にないです。男性がいないとできないことが今のところ。
There's nothing I can't do without a man at the moment. Did you understand what she just admitted to? She's not interested in men as human beings. He either is useful to her or she has nothing to do with him.
ないので。
Do you feel any pressure to get married?
プレッシャーをかけられてるけど自分は気にしてないです。
Okay, so that was important. Oh, yes, they talk about sex again. So are women disinterested in sex?
Is that true?
そんなこともない。
装飾というわけでもなく、そもそも人との関わりをあまり持とうとしないみたいな。
See the gender neutral? They don't want to get entangled with other people. No, they don't want to get entangled with men because men might expect something and they're not going to give anything to a man. They'll only have one in his life when they have a use for him. And this is not atypical women. This is the standard. All you guys listening, okay? Now they're going to do the typical complaining about the birth rates.
The face of Japan is changing.
Walk around the streets of Tokyo and you'll see plenty of elderly people, but not too many babies. A few years ago, it was called a national crisis. Since then, it's only got worse.
Yeah, so the reason I'm showing this is just to point out that they never mention solutions, do they? Because the solutions would have to involve forcing women to get married to men or get pregnant or whatever. They're not going to force women to do anything. And that's why this is a failure as a documentary. Now, here's the guy, because he's successful, lives a good life. Has nothing to do with anything.
Who's prepared to open up about the pressures of living in modern Japan. Under COVID restrictions, 32-year-old Naoya Kudo is working from home. He's a successful creative director at a heavy-hitting advertising firm.
And this is why he's happy, right? Because he achieved success.
But he also has a work ethic that's fairly new in Japan.
僕らの世代とか周りを見ると意外とあまりそういうずっとこの会社で骨をうずめるんだっていう感覚の人は少ない気がしますね。
He works hard and plays hard and isn't embracing the responsibilities that come with marriage and family.
Before you moved in here, you had a girlfriend, but what happened shortly after? What changed?
この年になってくると付き合ってるそのパートナーも
When you reach this age, your partner will want to talk about marriage. Exactly. So men never admit this, even if you pointed them out, but they all know that marriage just means servitude. He had a girlfriend, so this guy wants a girlfriend. So he's not single because he's not interested in the opposite sex. The girls I showed weren't interested in men. He wants to be with women, but he knows that the woman wants to make him into a slave. That's what marriage is. The marriage contract is a man has no rights, the woman has all the rights, and he has to work forever for her. And so that's why right now, because he has a social circle, because his success has allowed him a social circle, he's willing to forego not being a slave to a woman yet. That's what's not being mentioned here.
結婚ってどうなんだっけっていう話をする機会がこうある。じゃあ解散っていう形で。
Yeah, we broke up. In other words, she broke up. She looked at him once he started balking on marriage and saying, no, I'm not going to be your servant boy. I want to be an egalitarian. I want you and I just to be two human beings staying together. She dumped him.
He recently made an Instagram star of his grandfather wearing his high fashion clothes.
久しぶりにおじいちゃんとこういう一緒にこうやって遊んで、じゃあおじいちゃん生きてるうちにあと何回会う計算なんだっけって数えたら、このままいくともうあと 2,3 回会って終わりのペースだぞっていうのに気づいたりもして。
And this is why the elderly suffer too. People get into their own lives. They don't bother with the older generations. And so they become lonely. I'll show that to you later on.
Many successful young people, he loves living for the moment and spending his money.
とか会社に来てったこともありますね、これで。この辺はもう肩から。
And by the way, this is probably why his social circle is so strong. He's into fashion, which women love. So as you can see, they'll show him with his friends. And there they are. And there's a bunch of pretty girls. And this is why, like guys try to make it all about sex. It isn't all about sex. It's about validation and female company. He's got company of beautiful young women. So that's why he can reject a girlfriend.
Trying to find their way. Marriages used to be arranged. Now there's few guidelines for dating and people often don't know how to do it.
This is bullshit. People do know how to do it. They just don't want to engage in it. If this young woman doesn't deal with dating, it's because she doesn't see a guy who's high enough status to bribe her. And if these guys aren't doing it, it's because they're happy with their social circle. But I'm telling you now, when later on this guy gets lonely and these women start pairing up, he'll be great at dating. He'll be hitting on women and offering them bribes.
Well, that's why I'm single. So I don't know like how to make a partner.
Katsuyuki has just started a relationship that he found through social media.
Of course. Look, this guy, he's amongst all these pretty girls. How come he's not hitting on them? Well, he probably has and failed because they don't want to deal with him. He's not high enough status. So he looks online. So it shows you the guys are interested in getting with the girls and the girls aren't interested in getting with the guys. For me, marriage is not the goal of a relationship. Then you're not going to have a long-term relationship, are you? Because as the other guy showed back here, if you're with the girl any length of time, she'll want to get married. She'll want to turn you into a servant. So you either become a woman's servant or the relationship doesn't last.
Would you like to have children one day?
Yeah, and he's no different from the women. The women had the little puppy dogs for their children. People aren't interested in children. They were only interested in children in the past because the children looked after you in your old age. These guys know that their children aren't going to do that. So children are just, a resource dump, which isn't going to pay back. So that's why people aren't interested in getting children.
Are you you're interested in finding a partner?
If they're so nice, so this guy isn't one of them. And the guy they're talking to isn't one of them. So they're hanging around with guys that they're not interested in long-term relationships with.
いい人がいたら付き合いはしたいなと。必ず恋人がいないといけないっていう風なことは全然思ってなくて。
Naoya does want to get married one day, but...
See what I mean? He wants to get married one day. The men are the ones who want to get married. But right now, he knows marriage would end this easy life. So what he's saying is someday this easy life is going to end anyway, eventually. These young people are getting old, and these women will find partners, and then he will need a partner himself, or he'll be all alone. That's why.
Not yet.
Do you feel lonely sometimes?
でも結構ありますけどね。友達とかと意外とこう飲んだりする。
Exactly. He has friends already. He's already got his needs met. But he knows in the future it's going to end. Now, we'll get to the final part. This is what's going to happen to the men in the future. If this young fella doesn't stay successful and he doesn't get that magical girl, they're going to talk about gender neutral terms, of course, but they're going to show apartment of a man.
Homes are single households. By the end of the decade, tens of millions of people will be living on their own. Many are left to die alone, like the 64-year-old man who lived here.
Exactly, like the 64-year-old man who lived here.
The police have removed the body, but Masatomi Yoko has come to clean up the mess. He wants the solitary dead to be paid due respect.
Now, as you can see, this man had family. This is his daughter. So why did this guy die lonely when he has a daughter, right?
なんかこう亡くなった時ってこう刺繍が
By the way, notice she also doesn't want to show her face either.
するっていうじゃないですか。なんかそうではなくてこうおしっこの匂いとか排泄物アンモニアの匂いが一発目にバーンってきてってなってたんで、あちょっともうダメかもしれないってもう瞬間に思って、でもそれ以上はなんかこう父の最後の姿がその印象になっちゃってるので、もうそれ以上はこう見たくないなって思ってしまって。
Why do you think so many people, so many elderly people, are dying like this?
地域と
Elderly men in particular. They become isolated when their connections with community are weak, of course, because elderly women, they like other women, so they'll hang together. These men, men don't like other men. And so once they don't have the girl in their life, they don't have that special wife, they become alone. In this way, it really is on an individual as well. Men should be blamed for just avoiding one another and not forming bonds with other men, you know. But again, here's his family. So the nuclear family came along because the women liked that way, and the men liked having their mate guarding fetish, right? Like the guys pointed out, the nuclear family came along because young women had to be bossed around by older women, but the nuclear family was just them as the center. And so people prefer it this way. And again, men, they don't like their women being around other men. So they said, oh, I got this nuclear family unit, this household where the woman's by herself. She doesn't deal with other men. That makes me happy. So, I mean, this is what goes on here.
やっぱつながりも薄かったりで孤立するのがとても増えてきたと思っています。私は本当は毎日おはようでもお休みでもいいから。
So she's well intentioned, but I mean, come on, calling someone every day. The younger generation just dumps the older generation. Say, okay, you were useful when I was a child. Now I'm growing up, I can leave you and you're on your own. And so people don't really want communities. They want a community for themselves, but they don't really want to form them with other people. Now, we'll get to the last part, which shows you just how bad it is. If people cared about communities, you notice all these older guys who do luck out and have a family, they're not thinking about other men. This is proof positive.
Jake this.
The last time the family came together was for Grandpa Shigeru's 73rd birthday.
There he is. There's this guy, and he's surrounded by a giant family. So he's okay. And so what's this guy thinking about his community? He doesn't. The last thing on this guy's mind is other men in the country. He'll complain about it, but he's got his, so he doesn't care about other men.
It's a big family.
Big family. My sister.
Sayaka's sisters are married with children, but didn't come tonight.
Yeah, the ones who were married didn't bother coming. Again, they've got their own insular, family unit. And so this old guy better watch out.
Aunties married young and live close by.
可愛くなった。可愛くなった。
これてる。
太った嘘太った
How nice is it to see Sayaka-san?
嬉しいさ、孫だろうあんた。子供孫なのに。嬉しいさ。何も言わないけど、心の内では、楽しいなっていう感じ。
What do you think about the dogs?
No. No.
Sayaka-san tells us she's happily single and not interested in marriage or kids. What do you think about that?
No, you're wrong, pal. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. This woman, young woman, she's a pretty girl. The day she wants a guy, she just has to hit on a guy and she'll get one. She's not an idiot. She's living a good life now and she's got herself set for the future. So he doesn't know what he's talking about because men project their situation onto women. They have no idea. They don't even want to admit, if you bring it up, what their situation is. The women are fine. They live their lives on easy mode.
Grandpa Shigeru doesn't mince words, and he's in his element with his big family around him.
Exactly. He's in his element. He's fine. So of course he's a happy guy. He admits it. I'd be done for if I was left alone. I'd have a lonely death. Exactly. Okay, so he's even admitting that that's what's happening in the mainland, right? Okay, so he admits he knows what's going on. He knows there's a problem. What's he doing about it? Nothing, because like again, I say, this guy is having it all right. So that's someone else's problem. So for all their talk about Japan being community-minded and self-sacrificing their individuality for the greater good, it's not true in the end. They're just like everybody else in the world. They think I've got mine, so it's society's problem is someone else. There's something going wrong, or people are stupid, or all this bullshit. So just recognize that human beings are the same worldwide. Now, let's see. I personally don't think more individualism is good, but this has nothing to do with individualism. I mean, if he's talking about, like I say, the greater picture, how come he's not working towards it?
自分個人側はダメだなと思うけど、まあ今のもう世の中のニーズが。
I think that's all we need to say. Like, this is basically what I'm saying is that Japan's issues, the issues they're showing, are male issues. They're male issues. And they're always disguising them in gender neutral terms. And that when they do that, then you can't come to the proper conclusions. You will never come to a solution. Men's solutions have to be brought out in the open as male solutions. And then society has to, the mirror has to be brought up to society to show you what it is to itself. And there has to be responsibility taken by society. It has to say, okay, the measuring men by their usefulness and their success has to end. We have to treat men like egalitarian as women, the same as women. So this is what has to happen and what the conclusion that has to come to provide a solution to male issues. Thank you, everyone.